Welcome to Gateway Gatherings, where we bring you inspiring stories from business owners and service providers. Join us for a relaxed and chill conversation today with Christina, a seasoned physical therapist and biomechanics expert. Discover how her natural exercise-based approach to foot pain is helping people step into wellness and enjoy an active, pain-free life. If you enjoy this episode, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe for more amazing content. Stay tuned and let's get started.
Let's get ready. Welcome everyone to another episode of Gateway Gatherings, the show where we bring you inspiring stories from business owners and service providers who are out there making a real difference in our communities. I'm your host, Dr. Alika McGuire. Thank you, Tiara. I will see you tomorrow. And I'm thrilled to have today Christina, who's a physical therapist with 29 years of experience helping people reclaim their mobility and live pain-free. As a physical therapist and an expert on the biomechanics of the foot, she's been taking a look at our walking patterns and helping people get back to doing adventures. So walking, running, adventuring, hiking, all that stuff. Normally, I only invite people who are here in the St. Louis community, but she's able to help anyone everywhere with her remote coaching programs. And today she's going to be sharing a lot of her insights on how we can train our feet to support us better, move more fluidly with less pain. Also highlight the importance of looking at the entire body's movement rather than just spot treating painful areas. So let's dive in, and everyone, Christina, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Well, hi. It's great to be on talking about feet and walking pattern gait mechanics. I'm kind of obsessed with both, and I think that it's just fun to get people really thinking differently about their feet, because I feel like they're kind of mistreated and often ignored.
Absolutely. Now, so why don't you start by telling the folks about yourself, how you got started into physical therapy, and then where did you take the turn from just doing physical therapy, which is very different than the type of physical therapy that you do, where you're focusing so heavily on the foot?
I mean, many years ago, I just decided to go to school for physical therapy. Thank goodness I got into the program at University at Buffalo, because it was they would accept 50 a year. And it just worked out. I happened to choose a field that I ended up liking. However, working in the traditional healthcare system just ended up having a lot of downfalls to me. I wasn't a big fan of all the notes and all the hoops we had to jump through with documentation and in the limited with our patients. And I started taking some really interesting courses that get into a lot of details that aren't common for a typical physical therapist to do in a traditional setting. So I wanted to really have the time to use this knowledge with my patients. And I just started doing my own thing and teaching some classes. And then I just started to provide one-on-one physical therapy just so I could do it the way that I really wanted to. So I could just work with my patients the way I see fit, I guess. Just it my way and not through insurance anymore.
Yeah, I feel that with the insurance bit. My office accepts insurance, and I swear, I mean, it's insane. I'm still shocked with how some insurances operate, and how they don't really insure anything. So that's a huge thing, a huge misconception. So you were saying that you were a physical therapist. Were you working on your own, or did you always have your own little thing, or were you always did you used to work with another company?
I worked in multiple settings. I worked in a skilled nursing home with rehab. I worked in a hospital. And then I did home care because that was really flexible when I had young children. And then, I think It's hard to remember the years, but I did accept insurance for a little while out of a chiropractor office that had staff there like to help with scheduling and billing and things like that. I did that for a few years, and then around 2019, I think, is when I started doing more of the private physical therapy, and then remote coaching. Remote work was probably, it's just funny, I don't have it all memorized, but 2021, I think, was I started dabbling in the remote coaching, and I thought it was so cool to work with people from different countries, different states. So I still think it's funny, like that I would have not believed that I'm doing that if you asked me a few years ago, that I'm working with people from Texas or from different countries, you know. But
Well, it's funny. I mean, just with the COVID pandemic, I don't know how it was in Buffalo, but you know, in places like Colorado and Hawaii, both places I've lived before, you couldn't. There was nothing. Like you, even chiropractors couldn't see patients. Physical therapists, like it was just not possible. So you had to go remotely.
yeah, that was definitely a year where a lot of people started transitioning and
Mhm.
realizing how much could be remotely. So that definitely, like, I think, put a lot of people in the remote space that didn't
Yeah.
expect to be. Yeah.
hmm I remember during the pandemic. I mean, I kept a portable chiropractic table in the back of my car. I still keep it there. I never leave home without it, but I would literally see anybody anywhere anytime. Like, and it was like, oh, you're not comfortable leaving your home? You don't want to come to me? Don't worry, I got you. I'll glove up. I'll put my mask on. I'll drive to you. But that's just what we had to do to get to survive the pandemic.
Yeah.
Um, so you've been studying biomechanics for, you mentioned I think you said like the last 4 years you were studying biomechanics. How has this focus on people's walking patterns changed the way you approach your physical therapy?
So since I've been using this approach, which is Gary Ward is a great guy to follow. He developed anatomy in motion, and he has the flow motion model. And this is all based on walking mechanics. I just knew he was like um, this interesting guy that would show these foot wedges, and I was like, I have to learn what to do with these wedges. But he would come to America like once a year, and it was usually really far, like California, you know. And I was like, okay, that's on my radar. I'm probably just gonna have to make that a priority one year to go to California, whatever week he's coming. But then a lot of online education became available, so I did his online courses, his mentorship, and then in Toronto last fall, an in-person became. It was like a reasonable distance for me to travel, and I got to do my
Mhm.
first course, not with him directly, but with one of his instructors. Um, so I was fascinated. I was already at that point really interested in foot health and training feet to support you instead of using arch support injections when you have foot pain, because there's 26 bones and 33 joints in each foot. Yeah, we act like it should be in this brick of a shoe that doesn't move and that's all propped up and supported, but why can't we train this to move better? So I guess I was originally drawn to this approach because I'm so interested in feet and I wanted to know what he was doing with these foot wedges. And then so learning to move your interact with the ground properly with your feet when you're doing the foot exercises, they're not isolated. They are whole body exercises that focus on a segment of your walking pattern. So you'll feel something going on in your glutes, your core, your calf could, like it's a whole body experience to get the foot interacting with the ground properly. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like, where that all my life, I just became obsessed with it and how it felt in my body. And then you go for a walk and you're like, I feel like taller. I feel like I'm flowing
Mhm.
more. Certain muscles that were underused in my body, for me, was like hamstrings and calves were just kind of a wimpy part of my body. They started like burning and working harder just because I was practicing this way of moving. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I just immediately started using it with my patients and teaching anyone I could how to use these wedges and how to do whole body type of
Yeah.
walking exercises.
Do you have a couple wedges that you can show to the folks in the camera?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what those wedges look like.
So what we do with these, let me see. I can show with the skeleton foot, and then I can also show on my foot
Yeah,
if you want. But
yeah. If you don't mind, yeah, why don't you show us a little bit of the anatomy of the foot, how it moves and all of that. I know that being a chiropractor, I know that so much of the foot, the neurological a lot of the neurology from to the brain comes from the foot and the ankles. And I know, 26 bones, 33 joints, you have to keep it mobile. It's designed to move. So we never forget the foot. And one thing I've told a lot of patients in the past, and actually a few weeks ago, I had another physical therapist on here. If you can maintain three things as you get older, your body's going to thank you. And it's thoracic mobility, hip mobility, the last one being ankle mobility. So if you can maintain those three things, your body, as you get older, is going to thank you. So why don't you take a few moments and just kind of show us the model and how the spine, how the foot moves and all of that stuff with the wedges.
yeah, so feet are complex. There's a lot of joints and bones, but there's only two foot shapes. There's supination and pronation. Uh, so pronation is the flatter foot shape, and that's often looked at as a bad thing, the flatter foot shape. But so you need every step we take, we should go into the flatter foot shape. It's really vital and important. It's like opening up the bottom of your foot. It opens up the inside of the arch here. And some people you never want to be stuck in the flat-footed shape, and you never want to be stuck in the high arch foot shape where you can't go flat, because this is shock absorption. If you picture yourself landing from a jump and absorbing shock. Well, when you're walking or running, you also want to absorb shock with every step you take. And so if someone, say like they bend their leg and their arch doesn't change much and their heel lifts up, well, we can use a wedge to keep the heel grounded. Oh, my dog. I have a rescue dog, by the way. I love your fundraiser. He just jumped up with me.
Oh,
Rocky. Anyways, so wedges can be used to help you keep your tripod grounded. The ideal foot tripod is your heel, your big knuckle, or your first met head, and your fifth toe knuckle, your baby toe knuckle, your fifth met head. So the tripod being grounded is really important. So you can use a wedge to help keep the tripod grounded. But then some people, this is just one of many examples, they need to keep the heel grounded, and then you want this calcaneus, your heel, to roll that way to help you pronate. Some people, it looks more like this. So they're not getting the grounded or the roll. So we can use a wedge to do both. And this is a totally different experience. And this wakes up the bottom of your foot, and think of a rubber band. So if you lengthen and load a rubber band, it will propel across the room. If it doesn't lengthen and load, it just drops. So if the bottom of your foot doesn't change shape, well, you're not lengthening and loading your foot. And this also is required to lengthen and load your calf muscles, your glutes, your core properly. So then it's like opening access to a bunch of different areas of your body just because your foot's getting the right, movement in it. So we use wedges for the forefoot, different angles depending on the goal, because the different angles of the wedge will promote different movements and help your tripod stay grounded. But you can use the wedges to promote the flatter footed shape and the supinated or higher arch foot shape. And it feels like your foot wakes up, your arch might cramp, it might stretch, and you're probably going to feel stuff in your glutes and your core when you get the foot moving properly. You should expect like a whole bunch of things to kind of unlock in your body.
it's fascinating when you're able to get the right amount of proprioception from the foot, because when we don't have proprioception, neurologically speaking, it's going to give way to a lot of other things like pain replace that. Now, obviously, as you're learning this, you're doing it on yourself, you're practicing it on yourself. What are some of the things that you noticed personally when you were going through this program?
Someone's saying to walk barefoot. It's funny. So can I respond to that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
a huge barefoot nerd. Like, I was really into barefoot shoes. I learned from Katie Bowman. She has some books about being barefoot and wearing barefoot shoes. So I had a lot of light bulbs go off. I'm like, oh my gosh, why am I wearing shoes with an elevated heel or a narrow toe box? And your foot is like, can't function at its fullest when you're wearing shoes like that. So I started wearing barefoot shoes, and I loved the foot freedom, and I loved wearing barefoot shoes. But one thing I noticed is that, yeah, your feet get stronger from supporting you if you don't wear arch support all the time, but it's not gonna, so that'll improve your mechanics a little bit just because you're not blocking your foot from functioning well. But there's certain things that just happen until you go in and specifically train it, like use the wedges, train your foot to move in certain angles. So I'm a big hiker. If I was doing like a big mountain hike, I would get left ankle pain and right hip would get kind of cranky. And this is usually on a really big day of hiking for me. So once I started using the wedges and bringing more balance to my mechanics and my walking pattern, I can now hike for hours without that kind of pain. And even just with a regular walk around the neighborhood, I just felt more fluid and taller, and like waking up my feet, like my feet could make better arches because I tend to be more on the flat-footed side. So I started really developing better arch muscles compared to just going barefoot and wearing barefoot shoes all the time.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's wonderful. You emphasize looking at the whole body rather than just kind of spot treating a painful area. I can definitely attest. I definitely attest to that, and I agree with that. Can you give us an example of how seemingly an unrelated body part might be contributing to foot pain?
So yeah, there's so many examples. So sometimes someone comes to me with, I do draw a lot of patients and clients with foot pain just because I talk about feet all the time. And so what I do is I do foot tests, but then I test the movements in their hips and pelvis, their spine and rib cage, shoulder blades, the way their whole body moves. And I watch videos of their walking pattern and look for what parts of their walking pattern are limited or where a movement isn't happening that we would expect it to happen. So I basically make a list of all the movements someone isn't doing well. Their feet might not do a certain movement, their spine, their shoulder blade, whatever it is. And then I just try to and then I look for themes and patterns. And sometimes the person with foot pain, you're like, when I test your feet, I mean, no one's feet usually test out perfectly functional, but there will be something else that really jumps out at me. I'm like, your shoulder blade is so stiff and it doesn't depress at all. So then I get them on the table and I compare right and left. And if I feel the shoulder blade's kind of stuck, I'm like, let's get that loosened up. And then that changes the way you move your spine, and it changes the way everything trickles down and how you land on your feet then, and it unlocks the movement pattern. So it really is more like looking for, wow, when I watch this person move, what seems to really be the stuck spot? And it could be related to an old injury from childhood that they forgot about and don't even pay much attention to, So it's just really important to listen to someone's story and their history and look at the body for clues, because a lot of times the painful part isn't the main area that needs the most work,
Yeah. There's a lot of information that can be gathered from just watching someone walk. I know for my purposes, when I'm watching people walk, I'm actually I'm looking for a lot of unleveling in the hips and pelvis. I'm looking for, are they able to swing their arms do they have a good cross crawl pattern while they're walking? Are the hips and that stuff shifting? And I usually don't know what to look for when it comes to the feet. So for those of us who are providers out there, what are some things that we can look for so we can get better at looking at someone's gait pattern?
So I think looking at the feet is much easier. So I do look at walking videos and I pay attention to the feet and the whole body when someone walks. But even more information is gathered a lot of times from more of a foot function test. So I can easily see, so I can show you one of my favorites. Let me move my phone.
Yeah. I'm learning just as much as I hope the listeners are, because this is a lot of this is fascinating to me.
I don't know. Can you see my feet okay?
Yeah, Kenda, can you see them okay?
I feel like the lighting isn't the best. I want to show
Yeah.
you from a tripod test. So if you stand your feet on the hips and turn your body right and left, so you don't move your feet right and left, you just, and actually I even like this view better if you can, it's a little dark here, I should have, but if you turn your feet right and left, you can see if someone can make their arch and flatten. So when I turn towards the right, my right arch lifts, left, my right arch drops. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? So that right there just gives you information if they can make 2-foot shapes. And then you also want to see if their first met head and fifth met head stay grounded. So if I rotate to the right and my arch lifts, but so does my big toe knuckle, then that's not a proper arch. That's kind of cheating. It's like a sluggish, supinated foot shape. Or if I could keep my big toe knuckle down, see how much better my arch is? I know the lighting isn't the best. I'm trying to.
Okay.
And then when you flatter foot shape, if the pinky is off the ground like that, that's more dominant. So if you make your flat shape with the pinky knuckle heavy, that's much higher quality. So that would show me that when you're walking, you have higher quality supination and pronation. You know, there's a lot to look at too with ankles, talus, and your rear foot, like Bird and Evert. You know, there's so much
Yeah.
information you can get from just testing the tripod like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for showing that. Um, it's always it's difficult, especially when it comes to feet, because a lot of people get nervous about their feet. They don't want to take off their shoes and all that stuff. One thing I do take a look at is the wear pattern on the bottoms of someone's shoe. So what are some things that you would say about looking at that, or I guess what would be your advice when it comes to choosing a good shoe that's going to support foot health?
So I think a big thing with a shoe is meeting yourself where you're at. So I love barefoot shoes that allow foot freedom and natural movement in your feet. But if you have pain when you're barefoot and you're wearing a barefoot shoe and it hurts to walk, then don't jump to that. You might want to use an Ultra that it has more cushioning, but it allows foot freedom. And there are also, I have a list if anyone wants to message me. I have a list of recommended shoes. So some of them are barefoot if you tolerate it and I love barefoot shoes. I think the biggest thing is you don't want the shoe to bully your feet into a certain shape. You want the shoe to allow you to move your feet. Unless you need the support for now, but then train your feet to support you well so that you can reduce how much support you need from the shoe, the orthotic, or whatever you're using, and increase how much your feet do. Your feet are strong, resilient, amazing. They can be trained to support you very well, just like you could train your core to support your spine, right? So I like wide toe boxes. I like a flat heel, a flexible shoe. But some people do need a little bit of elevation for now because they have a really tight ankle, and that if it hurts more, listen to your body and don't like torture yourself trying to wear some barefoot shoe if it makes you, you know.
Yeah. What advice would you give to like just the regular person? Say that someone they've been walking all day, they walk all day for work, or they're on their feet all day for work. They go home and their feet are just on fire. What is something that we can do in those moments for those of us that deal with that type of issue?
I mean, I think it's really helpful to learn how to supinate and pronate your foot so that you can do drills. I mean, it can literally take 5 minutes or less to just move your feet into the supination and pronation. Just doing a few reps of these exercises can really help your feet feel better. But it's for something that's more basic that someone can do without having to learn that intricate, exercise right now. You can do something like toe yoga, can be, where you interlace your fingers between your toes and you do some circles both directions and then do little toe splits, like split your toes apart. That could just be something you do that's just like unwinding and easy. and simple. It's a simple thing like anyone could do, you know?
I love that you mentioned that because I tell people to do that all the time, to take their hands, put it in between the toes, and start moving their feet um, in a range of motion to help mobilize it, especially when it's hurting. Um, yeah. One more thing I did want to say, because you were talking about wearing shoes that get your foot in a specific shape. Um, One thing I think a lot of parents don't realize is just how tight their baby's shoes are. Like, be very careful, especially you parents who are trying to shove your kid's foot into this tiny little shoe. Um, it's almost like foot binding. Would you agree with me on that, Christina?
Yeah, I think just wearing more socks with like a gripper on the bottom so that they don't slide on a floor, or something that protects their feet but doesn't restrict their foot, so that their foot could develop and support them, and just their foot could be trained to be strong just right from the get-go, is a great thing, instead of putting like a stiff shoe on. Like if you can't bend a shoe and it's more like putting a cast on your foot, you know, and then it's really thick, it's just you're interfering with natural movement.
Yeah.
Age then.
Yeah.
So you can even see, do you ever see videos of an animal or like a toddler with like these stiff shoes, and you walk different, you know?
Yeah.
It's so at a young age, if we can just learn to be barefoot as much as safe and as much as possible, and then protect your feet but let them support you, it's a great route to take, you know?
It's very difficult. It's not always possible to, it's unfortunate for those like construction workers or those individuals who have to wear those very big, bulky shoes just to protect their feet. But again, like there's plenty of things that can be done afterwards. Let's just really quickly talk about your remote coaching. How are you able to manage, effective physical therapy and be able to provide that to people all over the world through that?
So what I do is we meet on Zoom. I get to know the person and we go through, there's a lot we could do face to face on a Zoom call. And then I use an app and I assign different assessments, and they send me videos of their assessments. So that's how I get their walking videos. I have them do their foot tests, and we do whole body movement. Like we want anterior and posterior tilting, side bending, rotating of every major body part. And there I am making my list of what their body doesn't like to do. So the app works well because I can gather information, do their assessments, and then I could assign exercises. So we're exchanging videos a lot. And that's nice because even if we're in different time zones, on different schedules, they can just load the videos when they have time. I review them when I have time, and then I send them reviews. And what I love, like honestly, if I had to choose, is someone going to come to physical therapy and not participate and do their exercises, or are they going to work with me remotely? I'm like, you can get so much more done if someone commits to remote coaching. They send you, so not only are they sending me videos of all their assessments, the tests I want to see, but then when I assign an exercise and they're doing the exercise, they can send me the video so I can correct their form. So I'd be like, oh no, like, and sometimes I like talk and draw on it so that I can show them exactly what to do, or I'll show them with my body, like, see, doing this, but I want you to do whatever. So I really enjoy the consistency of working back and forth in an app, exchanging videos, and then meeting on Zoom every now and then as needed and as is appropriate. It's more like a process instead of just an appointment.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Now, why don't you tell us, like, what is like one client success story? Like, give us your most complicated case where you looked at this person and you're like, I don't know if I can help you, and somehow like a miracle happened. Why don't you tell me that story?
Oh, well, I'm trying to think of someone that I was like, there's no way. I mean, one of my favorites that comes to mind, just because like what was told her was so negative. So one of my clients, her doctor told her plantar fasciitis was incurable. She loves to hike. She wanted to go hiking mountains in Europe. And then her doctor told her she has incurable plantar fasciitis. So you're like, oh,
That's
first
disappointing.
of all, I don't think someone would say that. Like, why would
Yeah.
it be incurable? So she worked with me because she doesn't live here. She lives in a different state. So we work together with a 12-week program that I do. And then I think it was maybe a couple months after the 12-week program, she went to Europe. She hiked, I think, over a span of a few days, maybe around 100 miles. And she said her plantar fasciitis did not flare up. It didn't stop her. Like, she felt good. So that's one of my favorite stories, just because
Mhm.
she was told something negative. I didn't even see her in person, and then she was able to do the amazing hiking trip without plantar fasciitis bothering her.
How long was she dealing with that plantar fasciitis before she came to you?
I believe it was a few years.
Yeah. Wow. So a few years of plantar fasciitis where her doctor just gave up and said it's incurable, and that and 12 weeks with you, and then she's hiking a few hundred miles or whatever in Europe just a few months after that. That's amazing.
That,
That's awesome.
that's what gets me excited. It's just
Yeah.
giving people, like, helping people live those active, healthy, and adventurous lives, because so many people are sidelined. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think that pain is, that's just how our life is going to be, like, no matter
Yeah.
what you're told. I just think there's always hope, and don't give up.
Yeah, absolutely. And if, I tell this to patients all the time, like, sometimes some brands of chiropractic, some massage therapists, some physical therapists, maybe you just haven't found the right one. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you. It just means that you maybe have to find the right one. Maybe it's a different contact you need. Maybe you need a different type of energy. Um, Maybe you just need a different set of hands on top of you. But it doesn't mean that like whatever you're trying doesn't work. It just means you have to keep trying and find one that works better.
Yeah.
Um, Christina, what do we have to look forward to in the future for you?
Um, well, just started some group coaching this year for people who want to just try out some of the exercises. So I'm excited to just have that offer, so that you don't always have to commit to one-on-one.
Mhm.
And I currently work out of my home office, which is right here. I'm in a suburb of Buffalo, and I may be adding a new location at an office that's like a functional medicine type office. Possibly next month. We have to work out some details.
Yeah.
So those are things that I'm working on expanding and offering some more.
Yeah, awesome. How do we find you? Do you have a YouTube channel? I know we have you foundations on Instagram. Do you have like a YouTube channel or something like that where we can get a little bit of more information
Yep.
just to see what you have to offer?
Yep. On YouTube, if you just look up Christina Summerville PT, I have some public videos. I have literally hundreds of videos for my clients, because I'm always making new videos and new instructions and making videos better. But I do make a bunch of them public, just so people can get to know me and get to know some of the
Mhm.
basic exercises. And I even wear my skeleton pants on some of them to show directions of bones. I'm really, like, into the skeleton. It's just
Yeah,
fascinating.
I love the skeleton pants, by the way.
And yeah. And my website, I'm revamping it, so it'll be hopefully ready by next week. Right now, it's not functioning well because I messed around with it, and now I'm working on a new one. But Foundations PT, WesternNewYork.com should be up and running by next week.
Wonderful. And then, Christina, is there anything else that you want to mention to the viewers today who are watching right now or watching the replay later?
Just I think if you know something's off with your feet, don't just think like that's like what you've been dealt with. Oh, I have flat feet. Oh, I have high arch feet. You can train your feet. You can train the flat arch foot to make an arch. You can train the high arch rigid foot to let go. Like, just don't accept that that's just what you have, and that you have to inject them or support them, that you can train them. And just, again, to have someone look at you holistically as a whole person and a whole body is so important. Like, it makes the hugest difference. So,
Absolutely. All right, I've got nothing else for you. Christina, I want to say thank you so much for joining me today. For those of you watching, if you guys have foot pain, if you're dealing with any type of pain in the lower extremity, and or would want to see, get a test on your foot health and want to reach out to Christina, you can reach out to her on her website, which hopefully will be out next week. If not, you can always look up Christina Summerville PT on YouTube to get an idea of what she has to offer. But with that, sure we got nothing else to say, Christina?
I mean, I could talk for hours about this stuff, but I think we need points.
Yeah.
And fun talking, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for watching, and Christina, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope all of you have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you all very soon. We'll be back here in 2 weeks on the 25th. I got my friend Don who does all the hair braiding and all that stuff. So yeah, tune in for that one on the 25th. And in the meantime, Christina, you have a wonderful day, and everyone else, I'll see you all very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you.